Shalom Sadiqim. Everybody knows that love your neighbors yourself is the greatest commandment. After all, it's the golden rule, right? So if you Google love your neighbors yourself, it's no surprise that you get a bunch of quotes from Jesus in the New Testament, because love your neighbors yourself originates from the New Testament, right? It originates from the Gospels. Wrong. And it's also not the greatest commandment. What gives? So if we turn to Matthew chapter 22 or Mark chapter 12, where Jesus speaks about loving your neighbors yourself, we'll see that the actual narrative recounts a Jewish teacher who asks Jesus, what is the greatest commandment in the law of Moses? Because you see, the law of Moses, sort of a mistranslation, the Torah, which really means guidance, God's guidance. That is the foundation of the faith of Israel, and really it's the foundation of teaching even in the New Testament, though many Christians have lost sight of this or haven't inherited that knowledge, unfortunately. So Jesus responded to the teacher, the greatest commandment in God's guidance, the Torah, is, not love your neighbors yourself, is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one, and you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and ability. He was quoting Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. And then he said, and the second is similar. You should love your neighbor as yourself. And then he said, and all the rest of the commandments of the Torah depend on these two. As if to say, I'm not throwing away all these other commandments in the Torah, the law of Moses. I'm just stating that they rest on these two. These two are the essence, the foundation. If we neglect these two, loving God, serving him with our heart, if we neglect loving our neighbor as ourselves, then we are neglecting, we are not properly fulfilling the other commandments either. They all rest on these two. And this is why, again and again, throughout the Gospels, Jesus so emphasizes forgiveness of other people, not letting the sun go down on your anger, because if we would actually turn to Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, where love your neighbor as yourself actually originates, not in the Gospels, but in perhaps what is the most stigmatized book of the Bible, in the book of Leviticus, in the Old Testament, the Jewish Bible, in a book full of sacrifices and rituals. It's there that God gave the commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. And if we look at the passage in context, we'll see that loving your neighbor as yourself comes together with, do not take vengeance against your fellow, and don't bear a grudge against your brother, but you should surely love your neighbor as yourself. I'm paraphrasing, of course. You should look it up. So, love your neighbor as yourself. Number 2 commandment. And the number 1, absolute monotheism. Serve only God. God is one. You should love him with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your ability. But God doesn't demand from us anything more than that, anything more than we are able. And love your neighbor as yourself first means you must love yourself. On that note, you guys have a great evening. And remember, Oseh emunah rasana. Doers of faith are his delight. V'yosem lecha shalom, and he shall grant you peace. Yalla bye.